Hello and welcome to episode 98 of the Boot Nerds podcast. JayMike, what's going on?
Things are good in Denmark, my friend. What about Canada?
Very snowy, but I heard you're getting some Canadian-esque weather over there as well.
Oh, man, it's been ridiculous. Wanting to go. I don't know if you saw the Unisport video we did on the Spectrum pack, where things turned from being like okay to absolute mayhem, or at least for Danish standards, in like an hour. We just got like 5 centimeters of snow and just like that. So at the beginning of the video, no snow, and then we actually had to cut the shoot short because, well, it was insane. We got to shooting the Legend, which is white and green, on a football pitch covered in snow, which is white and so you basically couldn't see it on my feet. That was pretty wicked, but yeah, snowy.
Yeah, I just like the idea of 5 centimeters of snow being this like crazy thing. That's hilarious.
Yeah, see, this is why you guys drive trucks and we don't.
Yeah, we're still swimming in 5 centimeters of snow.
Oh, yeah, right. But otherwise, things are pretty good. I'm looking forward to the summer because yeah, I'm not a snow fan.
Yeah, who isn't at this point?
Yeah, I know.
But
you're good as well.
I'm great.
You're like. Okay. Oh, you're great.
I'm great. No complaints from me.
Okay. So I like how those two things are just like, that's the same level. But anyways, today, guys, we are talking about takedown models. Because as you may know, there are a lot of good takedown models out there. We say that all the time. But there are also some that are not quite so good. And we're going to discuss both sides of the spectrum today. We're going to do our top takedown models, however you say it.
Top 3 best.
Top 3 best takedown models, and then we're also going to do the bottom 3 takedown models. And yeah, it's going to be, we might get into being a little bit harsh territory, but that's the way it is. I mean, after all, we've been sat down looking here at takedown models, and the criteria is, would I buy them or wouldn't I buy them for myself or for my kids? Would that be something I would want to pay that amount of money for? So where do you want to start? Should we start from the bottom or should we start from the top?
We should start by asking our loyal Boot Nerd followers to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed these podcasts. Because we are 98 episodes in, almost to 100. If you enjoy these episodes and want to see them continue, please support it with a like. And if you have any questions regarding the topic of today's podcast and or anything else football boot related, please leave it down below in the comment section and we might answer it in the next episode. But we should start with the best and then work our way to the worst.
Okay. Before we get started, do we have a sponsor for today's episode, John?
We don't have a sponsor, but I'm just getting a call right now. What? PureGripSocks.com is sponsoring today's episode of the Boot Nerds podcast, where you can get the most affordable grip socks on the market, available in a wide variety of colors for just $14.99 a pair, available right now at PureGripSocks.com, which will be linked down below in the description. Wow.
That was pretty generous of the Pure Grip Socks guys to come in and sponsor this.
Really last minute sponsor, but they pulled through for us.
Anyways, the best takedown models out there, Josh. I have ranked mine in no particular order. So I'm just gonna go off with the best 3. Let's start off with the most recent one, which would be the Nike Mercurial Vapor 14 Pro. This is probably no surprise to, I guess, anyone who's been following any of our channels for the last, I don't know how many years, because the Vapor 12, 13, 14 Pros have all been very, very solid. The 11s were also pretty good, actually. And historically, the Nike takedowns off the Vapor, they've always been good, right? I think we all remember the Talaria back in the days was a really, really solid football boot for next to no money compared to the Vapors that back then was a ridiculous amount of money for a kid like myself, at least. Talarias, I rocked the Talarias back in the day, I'll be honest. But the thing is here that what I like about the Vapor 14 Pro is that they've basically gone in and they've used the same construction blueprint. So the same way of using the same, use the same, concept for the components. So they have the outer skin, they have the synthetic, they have a liner. They have this grid-like mesh component, which is actually a knitted component, but we're going to leave it at that. But they basically have the same like structure of the upper. They've just used different materials. And that's something I appreciate a lot because you get the same look, you get the same sensation, with just, obviously slightly less flexible and supportive materials. And it feels like a Mercurial. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think for me, my criteria with any takedown model, especially the mid-tier ones, because these are still $140 retail. They're $10 more than Vapor 13 Pro. That shouldn't be ignored. And for $10 more, you can get the Superfly 8 Pro, which is equally as good. It just has some extra material around your ankle, should you want that.
I would definitely not go for this. I think the material, the dynamic fit color, whatever they call it on the Pro, is kind of rubbish.
It is. It's a little on the cheap side. It doesn't look the best, but if you like having the collar, then it's there for an extra $10.
Right.
So my point being that this is not a cheap takedown model, but what you do get for the money is really solid. Kind of a weird angle for Nike this time around, where they didn't really give us any real tech specs for the Pro. It's kind of just like, here's the boot, figure out what it is on your own.
Yeah.
But it's very similar to the top model. I think where it really differentiates is it's a little bit more, it's slightly thicker, and it does feel more rigid and plasticky. So for those that, I guess, complained about the Elite model still feeling too knitted, you get more of a true kind of harder, less comfortable plastic synthetic feel from the Pro model, if that's your thing. Sure. It's a little bit of a wider silhouette. Weird tweaks with the slightly shallower lacing system. It starts a little bit higher and ends a little bit lower, which is kind of strange. But the sole plate feels really solid. There's not really a huge weight increase compared to the Elite model. It's a lot of bang for your buck. And if you're watching the Boot Nerds podcast, I'm going to assume that you can tell the Pro and the Elite apart. But I think to somebody maybe a little bit more unassuming and not as into football boots, I think they might be just as happy in the Elites in the Pros as they would be in the Elites. It's really closer than I was expecting.
And the thing is that if Nike had released these back in, let's say, 2014 and called them the Vapor, I think a lot of people would have actually bought it and said that is some seriously next level stuff. I mean, this might be, yesteryear's technology, but it's still, it works. And yes, you won't have the nylon band under the Titan synthetic that you get on the Elite model to around the speed band here. You're not going to get the same amount of support. The grid-like pattern isn't as closely weaved, but it's a very, very solid boot that I think, not only replicates the look and the feel, the construction, but also the value that you get for the money in the Elite boot. And as you say, it's there's going to be a lot of people mistaking this for the Elite because it has all the different components, both visually and to a certain extent, how it feels. Of course, you don't get that Avail Q liner that you get on the Elite. You just get that knitted sock going all the way through for the line. But we're being nitpicky here. I think this is one of the best takedowns because it feels like the top tier price point. And that to me is what a successful takedown is. It has to feel as much as possible as the top tier model. It has to look as close to it, and it has to be good value for money, i.e. a good football boot for what you pay. Yeah,
I said it in my review, but I think that this, other than maybe the takedown to the Vapor 10, which was the Veloce 2, am I wrong? This is probably the closest to the top end model that we've gotten from a Mercurial takedown ever.
I would agree, yeah.
Yeah, it's
that or the Talaria 2 back when in the Vapor 2 days, which was also like really, really close.
Really similar.
I know because I wore it to death. but yeah, in recent memory, you're right. That would probably be the closest. Also because the construction concepts are so similar.
Yeah.
I really like that approach. You say, okay, how did we build the Elite? Right, let's do it the same way on the Pro, but just with different materials.
Cool.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, solid option for, I think if you want a takedown model speed boot, that's the one to have.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you got next?
Maybe. Then I have, another takedown speed boot, which I actually also reckon is really good. That is the X Ghosted.2. And it's nowhere close to being as speedy as the Plus or the 0.1, but it's just a very solid boot. And I reckon this actually feels a lot like the X19.1 boots because it has that slightly more padded, softer upper. It feels somewhat close to that. Okay, I could do without the half lace cover here, but in general, it's a pretty well-fitting boot, slightly wider. And if I had to play like a half a season in this, I wouldn't be that mad about it. And they're, I think, 120 euros, if I'm not mistaken. Really, really solid, very comfortable. Not the lightest or most responsive thing in the game. That would be the Vapor 14 Pros. But if you're missing that X19.1 feel, these are not that far off and good boots for the money.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think that the standard has not been set very high for a lot of Adi takedown models.
Right.
This is one of the better ones they've done as far as speed boots go. And you're right. It's not light. It's not the most speedy by like top end standards, but it's a well-rounded football boot if you want something that's kind of just a softer mesh based upper.
Yes. Final choice for the top three, and I could have gone with a lot of different boots, but I've chosen the Future Set 2.1s because of what you get in terms of value for money. So the Future Sets, I feel already really, really good value for money. I think we both love the way they fit. I think you like them a little bit more than I do, but just with all Puma boots, 200 euros for their top price point is very, very good. These are 120 euros as well, if I remember correctly. And you get the Fusion Fit band, which is very nice. That's probably the thing on the 1.1, right? So you get that. And yeah, okay, sure, you don't get that same really soft vamp, the toe box, but the material is still pretty soft. You do get some texturing and you get a knitted sock. It's not the Evo Knit Pro, so it's not as nice and elasticated, but to most people, this is gonna feel pretty good. And it's slightly lower, which is something I appreciate. Yes, outsole is nowhere near the same, and that's a bit of the letdown, but it's okay for the money. And it's still like there's a lot of good stuff in here. So if you can't afford even the 200 euros, well, this is probably the best way, I would say, of getting like top level tech on a takedown model. Except for the boot you're going to mention in a little bit, I think.
Which is this guy right here. The Predator Freak.2, which, again, Adi, not the best track record when it comes to takedown models. Right. But with the Predator 20 generation, the 20.2 takedown model, I think surprised a lot of people, including myself. It's $120, and you got a low-cut variant of the Predator with rubber demon skin spikes, a stiffer synthetic upper, kind of a unnecessarily stiff and plasticky tongue design, in my opinion, but visually very good, and then a cheaper than it should be sole plate, I'll be completely honest, but overall, well-rounded boot, and the demon skin spikes being there, giving you that extra grip, that's really the main feature that you want carrying over from that top-end model. It's a defining characteristic for the Predator, so it was nice that you got it at a much lower price point than the top-end models.
Yeah,
Freak.2, the replacement, I think it's improved in a lot of ways. It has an upper that is significantly softer. I would argue feels even softer than what you're going to get from the top-end models for whatever reason. It has a little bit more padded built into it. You get not the exact same number of demon skin spikes, but the same style of demon skin spikes, more coverage than the previous model, and pretty much all of the extra grip you get from any of the top-end variants, despite there being less demon skin spikes. The new tongue design, I think, is much better in terms of how it feels across the top of your foot, but the collar is pretty ugly. That's
brutal, mate.
It's made out of cheap materials.
Look, I totally agree with everything you said up until the color part, and I like the Freak.2s. I think they're an improvement on the 20.2s, which I also like because it's not often that you get that high level tech on that price point, which is why the Freak.2 is unique and something I feel is really high value, but also. The 20.2 was so good, in my opinion, because it gave people the option of having that low-cut Predator at that price point with the spikes. And you can't buy the Freak.2s in low-cut. So you're kind of forced to have that high-cut abomination of a sock, I would call it. I really don't think it's very nice. And that's sort of my gripe with the Freak.2s is that it had a lot of potential. If they'd only carried over the style from the 20.2s, upgraded the vamp material, used the new demon skin rubber spikes, we would have been on to a winner, but I can't feel it as much as I'm feeling the Future Set 2.1s. But I definitely know where you're coming from. I think it's a little bit of a matter of opinion, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you really hate the collar, then you're probably not going to be that interested in this boot to begin with. And the collar, solid, along with the sole plate, I still think is cheaper than it should be, especially if you compare it. And this is the only reason why I say this, because people always get mad when I say Adidas takedown models aren't good. But if you compare,
general get mad at you a lot for saying takedown models aren't the best.
I know, but
it's funny. I saw one of your. I saw your. Maybe it was the Freak.3 or the Freak.2s, and you had this disclaimer initially saying that, okay, you might not like what I'm going to say, but I have to say this is a review. And I thought, I've heard you say that before. So I actually checked back on one of your earlier takedown reviews, and you said the exact same thing, apparently, because people have been hating so much.
Yeah.
Just a side note.
People get upset. But on the topic of takedown model sole plates, if we compare at the same price points, Nike and Adidas, the Nike takedown sole plates, I'm sorry, they're just significantly better.
Better, right? Yeah.
They're just better. They're using nicer plastics. The designs are far closer to the top end models.
And I would take this the Future Set 2.1 sole plate over the Adi one. I'm sorry, but
yeah, I don't know why. They really, if they're cutting costs for themselves anywhere on the boot, it seems to be definitely majority of it is happening on the sole plate. But to make a long story short, for $130, if you really want 95% of the experience that you're going to get from the top end model, it might not feel quite as good. And if you are a boot nerd, you're definitely going to notice the differences. But if you want to feel what the current modern day Predator is all about, you can get that experience from the Freak.2.
Yep. I understand that sentiment.
Which is good. I think that's what a takedown model should be.
I agree. I just, it's about, A, how similar does it feel to the top model? B, how much bang for the buck is it? Is it a good football boot? Yeah.
And we do have a few honorable mentions that we'll just run through really quickly.
Do you agree with my list other than the Preds?
I would swap out. Well, I would add one more that I don't have here in person. I agree with you with the Mercs. I would have the Mercs, the Preds, and I really still think the Nike Tiempo Legend 8 Pro is a really solid boot for the money.
Yeah, honorable mention to that as well. It's just one of those boots you can't go wrong with, and it's not as good as the Legend 8 Elite, but if you don't know football boots, you might get it on and think, it's a bit more of that. We've been giving the Legend 8 Elite a lot of stick for not being a Tiempo. I think that the Legend 8 Pro feels more like the Tiempo we're asking for.
Just with slightly less premium materials, which probably lends itself better in terms of long-term durability, which is kind of what you expect from a takedown model. True. I also think that if we've named 6 boots in our top 3, and or maybe we've named 5. We've named 5 boots. I think if you put on all 5 of these boots we've mentioned, I think the vast majority of people, if they were truly giving an unbiased opinion on feel and comfort, I would think 10 out of 10 would say the Tiempos fit and feel the best on their feet.
Probably, yeah. I agree.
Which is funny because I think just visually it's certainly not a standout in this group, but really solid boots for the money. And if we're going to mention those, Nike Premier 2, $110. I know you don't like them as much as I do, but I think that's a really solid boot for the money. Also, not to just highlight all of the Nike Pro models, but they're pretty good.
They do make great Pro models.
Their Pro models are good. Nike Phantom GT Pro.
Better than I expected to be honest.
Really good. Pretty similar to what you're going to get from the top end Elite model. And if you like that soft, kind of flexible, knitted upper, you're getting it at a much lower price point.
Yep. And that's generally the thing, right? And we also got to mention right now that generally the first takedown level is pretty good these days. It's hard to find a 0.2 or Pro or 2.1 model that is bad. I mean, we could also have mentioned the New Balance Furon Destroy, which is also that's a pretty good boot for the money. It's just not right up there yet, I feel. But there's also the other side of the coin, which is where takedowns get they don't give you as much as they probably should, following the same logic from the Pro models. And this might be a bit harsh, and there might be people out there whose feelings will get hurt. On the other hand, if you buy these takedown models, you're probably not listening to the Boot Nerds podcast anyway.
That's true.
So with that said, I would like to dive into the territory of asking questions about the Nike Vapor 14. That's the wrong one, Jay, you're taking there. The Vapor 14 Academy boots. I almost took the club. That's dangerous territory. I'm a boot nerd. I'm a professional. So the thing with the Academy is that it's 80 euros, which is that's not a lot of money. And yes, you do get a slight upgrade compared to last year because you do get this like 3D molded texture on it, and it's a pretty soft upper. But when you compare it to the Pro, the drop off in quality, and we talked about this before the show, the drop off in quality is just insane. Like the way this looks and feels, it has nothing other than the graphics, nothing whatsoever to do with the top end Elite model. And is it a bad boot for 80 euros? I mean, no, but it's just not true to what the Mercurial wants to be. And I feel that's a little bit of a shame. And yeah, you get this something of the same look and feel on the outsole, but it's not really because... And you know, it's wider and it just feels a little flappy. That's the word I was looking for. It's not, you know, this is a great replica or a great way of like simulating everything you get in the Elite price point. This is not. It's just a decent-ish football boot that kind of looks like it. Do you get me?
Yeah, look at. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the Academy tier Mercurials, whether you go Vapor or Superfly. Superfly is typically a little bit worse because of the janky collars that they tend to put on those boots.
I'm not a fan of the Superfly takedowns.
Yeah, they're just not amazing. But we also have to recognize that this is the most popular football boot, period.
Absolutely.
Not just takedown model, period. They sell more of those Academy tier Mercurials than they sell anything else across the world.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Probably by a large margin.
Yo, yes.
And the reason why I think we put these on the list is because it's probably the most overrated football boot in the world and has been for a number of years now because people just love Mercurial. They love the way that they look. They love the idea of what the Mercurial represents. But like you just said, you're really getting nothing from the top end model. It has the same graphics. They're not even giving you the same stud pattern anymore on the Academy tiers. You're getting a watered down version of even that.
And I get that because it's mostly kids buying these and you know MG, you can use it on both FG, AG. I get it, it's understandable. And again, they're not bad boots. Would I mind putting my kid in this when she's old enough to wear football? Well, no, I wouldn't. But it's just like it just doesn't. Yeah, no, it's just not giving me the Mercurial vibes. And when I know what they've done with the Pro, it's just not good enough for me.
Yeah, we've seen. And I've made these recommendations over the years. I remember the Phantom Venom Academy I thought was a really good standout and a better representation of actually a lower end Mercurial than the Mercurial that was available at the time. I just think that this is Nike capitalizing on the popularity, the insane popularity of the Mercurial line and just putting out a product that is good enough, right? You're going to put that boot on your feet. And if you don't know any better, you're going to say, wow, that feels good enough. And
then we also have the club. I just the club is 55 euros, but I would seriously go and spend my 55 euros on something else. It's cheap. Of course it's cheap, but it's too cheap.
Yeah.
For what they're usually doing with the clubs. I'm not a fan.
Yeah. Look, when you're on a really tight budget, we should have started the whole podcast with this because it's about takedown models. If you're on a really tight budget, shop around a little bit. Take a look at what's on sale from last season or even last month's colorways because boots go on sale so quickly now. You can often get a much better product for the money that you have to spend versus just buying the latest one and the latest colorway for full retail. So always keep that in mind.
Right. Moving on, do you want to go to the next one? Because as much as we liked the Freak.2s, we don't really like the Freak.3 Laceless boots.
No. In general, I would try to stay away from anything that is takedown model laceless. I've yet to come across anything that's great. But this one in particular really makes me question whether or not they put that on people's feet before building it. Because it's the way that heel fits. It blew my mind. I thought, wow, it looks significantly better than last year's laceless Predator. Hopefully it's better on feet. No, it's arguably worse. I don't know what they did.
Me neither, but there's just this, it's so flappy and feels very loose, and it's loose in places and kind of like hard pressuring on your foot in others, and it's just like it's a little bit of a mess. And yes, it looks like the high-end model, so I'll give it that. And yes, it has those demon scales, which is technically just slightly sticky stickers, basically. So yeah, you're gonna get credit for the looks, but don't buy it. Seriously, if you're gonna go for a Freak.3, buy them with the laces. They'll give you a much better experience. And to think that Adi charge more for this compared to the laced up one is just a little bit of a shame.
Yeah,
I would stay away from this, because this is not a good. Laceless boots, in order to be value for money, need to give you lockdown and a tight fit. These will not give you that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And look, I already know there's going to be people watching this episode that bought the boots, have them, love them, don't see anything wrong with them. And that's fine. Cool. You can really like bad boots. I like plenty of boots that are not very good. But this is one of those boots that if you're really being honest with yourself and you try on some other football boots at the same price point, I'm sorry, there's just no justification for spending $100 on that over other options.
No, or the $200 you spent on the Laser 2s back in the day.
Multiple pairs.
Right. I have one more, and that is the New Balance Tequila Magique, which, as you probably know, as a French-speaking guy, means magic, if you didn't realize. And the thing is here that they have, which is good, it's not laceless, which I appreciate, but apart from that, everything else on this one is absolutely brutal. The synthetic here is like, the thing is that we see with this level of takedown, so the 0.3 or the Academy level takedown, is that they're not nice materials, but they're still relatively soft. And yes, there's some sort of like, this is not soft, it's not pliable. It might be when you break it in, but it feels very plasticky and very stiff and very cheap on your foot. And it has the same problem as the high-end Tequila Pro for me, is that it just doesn't feel like it's made for foot. like I appreciate what they wanted to do with the Tequila Pros, but you know when you say that you shoehorn something into, it's being shoehorned into something that it's being put into something where it's not supposed to fit. This is how my foot feels like when it goes into this. Just, it doesn't have to like being squeezed in. There's just room all over. It doesn't feel nice. So that would probably be the last takedown model I would go and buy for my daughter.
Yeah, it's a really questionable football boot.
Yeah. Let's put it like that. Colors even worse than it is on the Nike Superfly 8 Academy. I like what New Balance are doing with the Furon boots, but this shows that maybe it's time to. None of the Tequila boots are working, guys. Just move on.
Yeah, I think, and that kind of concludes the top 5 and the top 3 and the bottom 3. Yeah, if we want to call it that. Yeah, and I think if you're set on getting a takedown model, I really consider all of your options, because while there are a lot of top end boots out there, there are even more takedown models. And look, you're watching the Boot Nerds podcast. I'm going to assume that you understand that some boots are going to be better than
right.
Yeah, you're going to understand that some boots are better than others. Yeah. And just because a product exists doesn't mean that it's a good product. That's just unfortunately, that's just the reality of not just football boots, but a lot of things in this world. So
honestly, I think what you said with that, go look for older top tier boots. You can even go as far back as 2-3 years, and you'll be able to find some absolute bargains, sometimes for even less than the 140 euros you're going to pay for these. Like, it's just, that's something you have to keep in mind. So you can go back, you can buy some Puma ones. Usually those are dirt cheap. Puma Futures, if you can find the 18 Puma, something like that, you can find proper good deals for less than what the first level takedowns are. So go look for that. That's probably my best advice that I've stolen from Josh.
It's okay. It's fine.
Thank you. On On that bombshell, we're going to move on to the questions for this week. And as Josh mentioned in the beginning, if you have any questions or comments that you want to pass on, let us know in the comment section right down below, and we are going to answer some of them in the next couple of episodes. We have one here from Peter Rees, which is a Danish name, Peter Rees. Hey, Jenga and Jay, have you tried the Select Brilliant Super V21? And does it feel different compared to the V20? Have you tried it, Josh?
I have not.
The UB?
No, I haven't tried it yet.
Right.
But
I haven't either.
Yeah, knowing what I know about Select, I'm going to expect it to feel very similar to past Select balls.
Yes. So the technology, I think it's been fused with bonded with ultrasound, which sounds cool. I've had it in hand, and it feels more or less like the thermobonded one, which feels more or less like the normal one. So I think it's going to feel like a Brilliant Super, which is the best ball on the market, in my opinion. Anyway, just wanted to bring it in.
Yeah,
Emmanuel Rojo.
You know what? I think, just really quickly, I think Select as a brand, their ball is kind of like when the new iPhone comes out. It's like, it's a little bit better if you really like pay attention, but otherwise it's kind of the same thing again. But it's good. Yeah. It's always good. They're all good.
Yeah, it works. Emmanuel Rojo, what is the difference between the Regular 3s MIJ and the Regular 3 Elites? And is the premium worth it? So the thing is, I think, Josh, we've talked about the Regulars for a lot. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about the difference between Elite and Made in Japan a lot. But the thing is that Made in Japans are made in Japan. The Elites are made in Indonesia, and the Made in Japans are made with better materials. They're made in hand. Everything is built in hand by Japanese craftsmen. And also they are being like double glued, which means that normally you just glue them and that's it. But these boots are being double glued. So you glue them, you put them in the last, they go through the dryer, all that stuff. Then you glue them again just before you put them in the box, just to make sure that the bonding is perfect. They also last them for 24 hours compared to a normal of, I don't know how long they last, the Elites, but it's not for as long. So if you want the best of the best, Made in Japan, it doesn't get better than that. The Elites are very good boots for the money. I don't think it's fair to call them takedowns, but if we could call the Elite boots takedown for Mizuno, then they should definitely also be on this list. But they're around the 200-something euro mark. So still pretty expensive, but definitely like could easily be in the conversation with some of the other top tier boots out there. So I would say Elite is like comparable to a Vapor 14 Elite, and the Japan is just like that extra little sprinkle on top for me.
Yeah, and there are physical differences with that one in particular, where you do get less leather. It's a different kind of leather entirely. Still kangaroo, but not quite the same feel. Yeah. There's just less of it, and actually, it's almost relates a little bit closer to the Neo in terms of how the upper is broken up between leather and synthetic materials, where it's arguably a little bit more responsive than what you're going to get from the Made in Japan variation of the boot. It just depends on whether you want more or less leather and how much value you see in really having kind of the best of the best in terms of craftsmanship that you can get on a football boot.
Agreed. Is it worth the premium?
For me, it is. I think it is on that boot.
Yeah. If you're a nerd, and you're a nerd to the same extent as Josh and I are, well, then yes, it's worth the premium. Finn Kille 137. How is leather boots on AG? And I think Finn Kille means nice guy. Anyway, Swedish, I think. How is leather boots on AG? Most modern leather boots will be okay on AG if you don't use it every single day. But obviously, leather is a more fragile material than most synthetic uppers, so I would be careful wearing leather boots too much on AG.
Yeah, I think it's a softer material that, it's AG just tears up pretty much anything. There's not much you can wear. I guess if you wanted to play in like rubber boots, that'd be fine on AG. They'd be super durable.
Or the New Balance Visaro 2s. They could survive a nuclear war.
That's true. Yeah, those are bomb-proof.
Yeah, they're also like the cockroaches of football boots. They can survive.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree.
Yeah, right.
Which Crocs also, on the topic of Azzaro 2s, would also be really durable on artificial grass.
Absolutely.
But yeah, leather boots, obviously if you're getting an AG specific model, I think that's going to help you out long term. And I think also if you're, because I've played with some guys that have this weird way of dragging their toes or scraping certain parts of the upper against the ground more often than I would. And if that's you, then leather boots probably are not going to be the best option because you're going to wear through leather more easily doing those types of things. But I mean, for normal use, like Jay said, I think you should be okay. I think it's becoming more and more difficult these days to predict durability on any football boot.
Sure. And it depends a lot on your playstyle, like you said. So yeah, you should be okay, but just be aware that leather might break a little bit quicker than synthetics on AG. Because AG is it's brutal for any boot.
Yeah, for sure.
It's made for it. We have a question here from Alain. Bonjour, my favorite boot nerds. I have a question for you all, and I need an honest response, please. What went wrong in Nike said to allow these goofy-looking, takedown-looking new AG sole plates? I'll get them in a bit. They look so cheap. They look like my Takedown Maestro 2 AG sole plate from back in the days. I'll confess I'm a Nike fanboy, but this is not okay. Very angry. Take health seriously, but I would rather risk my new ACL with the FG model rather than wear these new Vapor 14 AGs. I need other boot nerds' opinion on this. Sincere opinion, Jay, in parentheses, which is like, do I not give sincere opinions? Anyway, from a pissed off French boot nerd who apparently also doesn't like me. I'll get the AG boots.
Okay. Well, I don't want to disagree with you. And I guess an opinion on the way that a football boot looks, everyone's going to be a little bit different with that. But I got to be honest in saying I like this change. I think that there needed to be a more extreme difference between the AG Pro and the FG stud pattern, and I think they've given it to us. And for me personally, I prefer this style of AG stud pattern from Nike for use on artificial grass. I think it feels more comfortable. I think it's significantly more safe. And look, if you think it's ugly, you think it's ugly, but it's the right way of doing things, I would argue, at least based on what we've seen from Nike.
I couldn't agree more. Am I a little bit sad to see the AG Pro tooling go? Yes, because I really liked it, and I basically that was the boot I always had in my bag because I could wear it on both FG AG pitches. That was really great. But I think I should say in terms of safety, injury prevention, and actual functionality as an AG tooling, this is better. Does it suck that you can't use it on both surfaces? It's not as versatile. Yes, does it look ugly? Yeah, it doesn't look as cool. I'll be honest. But does it matter? Would I rather go out and risk my ACL by wearing a pair of FG boots over these? No, I wouldn't. Absolutely wouldn't. Of course, that's up to you, Alain. But I can live with the fact because they are, as dedicated AG boots, they are better and they're safer. So yeah, I think you said it pretty well. There needed to be a clearer distinction between the two boots because it could be kind of confusing. So now you actually have something that's dedicated for AG use again. And I think we have been missing that a little bit because to some people, if you don't play on these like lovely 4G artificial pitches that we are lucky to have in Denmark, well, you might be in trouble because even the AG Pro outsole can be too aggressive for a lot of the rougher, older generations of AG pitches.
Yeah, I don't know how old Alain is here, but as you get older, there's two things that I've really come to value in a pair of football boots, and that is comfort as well as safety.
Yes.
And I think that this whole thing that I want to say Adidas started to popularize first, this concept of FGAG. It's kind of a pipe dream. It's kind of a made up marketing thing where I don't think anyone's truly ever nailed FGAG. You either get something that trends towards AG or it trends towards FG. There's no middle ground.
Possible.
No, there's such different surfaces. I know they're both the ground, But there's such different types of the ground that you can't have, like even AG Pro that we're losing out on now, what was previously featured on the Vapor 13 Superfly 7. That is, while a decent stud pattern on artificial grass, it trends more towards being FG. Like, look, you got Neymar, arguably one of the best players in the world, playing
FG.
on natural grass fields with an AG stud pattern.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be possible if it was truly a specialized stud pattern.
Tooling that's just a bit more rounded, and that's why I liked it so much, because it was a really rounded tooling, but it's just not. I mean, is it perfect for AG? No, it's not. So it's this. Do you remember the Vapor 9s, Vapor 9s, Vapor 8s back in the day, where you had these like octopus looking AG toolings, Hypervenom 1, I think, as well. It looked ridiculous, but they were great, and they're trending back towards that direction. I really like that. Sorry, Alain, but that is my sincere opinion.
Also, just to add on to this argument, I think that you buy, especially with the top end model, I don't mind it as much when they do it with takedowns. Like you get that kind of FG AG thing on the Academy version of the Mercurial.
Right.
But when you're spending $250, $275 on a pair of football boots for peak performance, you want peak performance for the surface you're doing it. It's like, I don't want to relate it to cars, but they make like track summer tires for summer conditions. They make winter tires for ideal traction in winter conditions. And then they make this all season thing in the middle. That's kind of like...
Would any car enthusiast ever go out and choose the all-season
But that's what I'm
thing?
saying. It's like, why... you can use that all-season tire. It's technically going to work in both conditions. But if you really want optimal performance in either condition, you need a specific type of tire. Gotcha. And I think the same applies for stud patterns, where if you want optimal performance, and in this case, safety as well is a big thing, you want a more hardcore AG stud pattern, and we have that back again.
I agree.
Cool.
That was our honest opinion. I hope you can live with that. And on that note, I think it's time to end this episode 98 of the Boot Nerds podcast. Now, if you have any ideas other than giveaway, we get it, guys. For episode 100, you should let us know in the comments as well down below. Leave us a like if you had a good time. That will help us tremendously in spreading the word of the Boot Nerds podcast. Also, you can go and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already by clicking the white bubble in the middle of the screen. Go follow us on our separate channels over our heads. And with that said, I've been JayMike, and I approve this message. See you in the next one.
Thanks for watching.
Ciao.